Hi, this is Brian, the Overworked IT Guy, W2BJM. Today I'm going to be giving you the review of the Radioddity Baofeng RD-5R DMR handheld radio. So let's just jump right into this. This is the radio. This is purchased from Radioddity. It is a partnership between Radioddity and Baofeng to make a true two-tier DMR radio, or tier 2 DMR radio, I should say. And you're looking at it, you're like, well, that's just like every other Baofeng radio. By looks, you're not wrong. Here is a UV5R X3. Put them side by side. They are just about the same radio, but the case is pretty much the only difference, or the only similarity. So on the 5R X3, it's got this black finish here. On the RD-5R, they tried to make it look more techno-y technology. It's got this chrome finish on it. But the guts is what really matters in this. The other difference really is with the antenna it shipped with. This shipped with a Radioddity wideband antenna, like a special Radioddity antenna, if you want to call it special antenna. A little bit more floppy antenna versus the traditional Baofeng, more stiff, rigid, shorter antenna. You can see here the antenna height difference as well. It adds about another 3 inches or so. But this does work on DMR mode, I should say, as well as FM mode. Really happy with this little guy. Just like most other Baofeng radios, it's got the flashlight on the top for some unknown reason. I know some folks like it. Whatever, fine. 2 buttons on the side. We've got our monitor and our call button, in addition to the push to talk button in the center. Traditional keypad, menu up, down, exit, AB band, VFO / memory button up top, so you can switch what mode you're in. This is also a dual band radio, VHF UHF. So instead of me just talking and pointing out features, let me take you to the website, and I'll show you what's on the website for features and breakdown and where you can get this from. Then we'll get back into the review. So here's the website for the Radioddity Baofeng RD-5R. You can see up top, dual band, dual time slot, DMR, digital monitor. They're very explicit here about the dual time slot. There was a previous generation radio that Radioddity and Baofeng partnered with, and it was only a single time slot. It actually took up both time slots when it transmitted, even though it went into one. It was not really a true tier 2 radio. Radioddity and Baofeng got some slack for that, saying misadvertising. They don't sell that radio anymore. This is the replacement. This radio does work on one time slot like it's supposed to. Right now you can see it's on sale, $10 off, usually $74.99, on sale for $64.99. And they've also got, in true Radioddity fashion, they've got these nice bundles you can buy down here to save even more money, where you can buy a battery pack and a speaker mic at the same time. Clearly popular, out of stock in other countries other than Europe and US right now. So quick rundown here. TDMA, yep, it's compatible with all DMR stuff that I've tried. VHF, UHF, and 2 bands at the same time, which is kind of really nice. So this little guy, DMR as well as analog, you can set it up so that, for example, your A side is digital, your B side is analog, A side is VHF, B side is UHF. However you really want to run this little thing, it'll take it in stride. Anyway, I'll save that, keep going here a little bit deeper. Again, multifunction, 1024 channels, plus, you know, the VFO mode here, which is kind of nice. 5R series design. So, as I sort of showed, this is the RD-5R and the UV5R X3. Same form factor, same batteries, same everything, really. You could even use the same antenna on it. The case, the form factor is identical. So anything in theory that works on the UV5R or the any of that type series radio will work on the RD-5R as well. Except the programming cable. This programs a little bit differently than the traditional Baofengs. While it does have the same speaker mic connector on the side, it does not use the same programming cable. The programming cable for the other Baofeng radios is serial based. When you plug it in, you get that serial device that shows up. That's not the case with the RD-5R. It shows up as a mouse. So for that reason, I strongly encourage anyone who has the programming cable, stand by 1 second. For that reason, I strongly encourage anybody who has an RD-5R radio, as well as others, to label the cables. Because here, you can see I put a little flag on this that says RD-5R, so I know what radio it's for. So you don't end up with another cable and get them confused. Not sure if it'll damage the radio, but you don't want to play that game with your radio. Otherwise, all the accessories seem to work well. The other thing that's different, again, since this is a digital radio, is you can't use the traditional software you're used to using with Baofeng radios, Chirp, or the common CPS application to program this, because it is digital, and the CPS software for Chirp and the other radios doesn't support digital features. So you kind of need to use the one that comes with it until somebody comes out with a standard format to manage digital radios. Hopping down a little bit here, they've got the tour video on the website, 16-month warranty, which is great. I'm not going to read the whole thing to you. I'll put the link to this website in the description, so when you decide you want to go buy it, you can just go down there and click in here. Digital monitor mode, supports analog and digital. We already talked about all that. Dual band high gain antenna. They did mention they threw that in, which is great. What's in the box? We went through that. If you want to see the unboxing, I've got another video that covers that. So let's switch off the website, and I'll go back into walking through some of the other features I like and don't like on the physical device itself. So on the device, it looks and works most like other Baofengs. Battery clip on the big Pro. More vendors than more manufacturers that hear this, the better. Battery clip belongs on the radio, the belt clip belongs on the radio, not on the battery. I think it's obnoxious, people who put it on the battery, so every time you get a new battery, you got to buy a new belt clip. That's just bizarre. Comes with a 7.4 1800 milliamp battery. BL5 is the model, but all of them are BL5. On the back, you've got your, you sort of see behind the battery clip, just the regular stickers you'd expect in the back of a radio. Charging connectors up top, like most other Baofengs, and to prove it works with other accessories, here's the Baofeng BL5 large battery, and we slide this right in here behind the belt clip. And there you now have an extended battery on your Baofeng RD-5R. Okay. For the sake of demo, I'll swap this back. Now, walking through the device. 2-line display. Nice and simple. Does have that AB mode to it. You push the AB button here, and it swaps back and forth. I'll show you the programming software in a few minutes here, and that's how you can basically program this radio. As with most digital radios, programming it from the front panel is possible. Not ideal. I don't recommend doing that for anybody unless you have a ton of time to kill and a lot of frustration you want to build up. It's just not really feasible. Band button on the front lets me switch from UHF to VHF. You can see the green light just lit. That means it's receiving something. Standard DMR type logic. My hotspot over here is transmitting something right now, which is why that keyed up. If I hit the button to transmit, light goes red while it's transmitting, and it says in the screen here group call, and then my BMGA and the talk group 3113. This was to Georgia Brandmaster. So that's the physical device. Yeah, it feels like a little cheap plastic, and that's okay. For the price, $74 or $74.99 on sale for $64.99. This is a you get what you pay for radio, but I feel like it's more than that, because yeah, my favorite of the DMR radios so far, the TYT, yeah, it's bigger, it's a little bit more comfortable in your hand, but it's also double the price. This, it's great at what it is. This was the first DMR radio I got on the air because it was easy to get on the air. I didn't have to do any tricks with unlocking it, finding weird things to do in the code plug, any of that. It sort of was very intuitive to get into it, even for the Chinese software. So I'm happy with this radio. I plan on using this radio a lot. I test the other one against this. As far as audio quality, this is the first one I made contacts on through my hotspot. I got good signal reports out. Heard everybody perfectly fine coming back in. It's a nice, solid little unit. It's not heavy at all. Can sit in your backpack, can sit in your pocket of your pants if you want. It's really lightweight. Again, it's got the little hand strap if you want. You can take that off; it just ties on. Yeah, so that's the radio. Charging connectors on the back. The one downside, as with all Baofeng radios, it seems like, uses a 10-volt wall wart to charge it. Definitely not a fan of that. If you plug a 12-volt wall wart into it or into your power supply for your shack, you will damage the power supply, if not, or damage the charger. If not, cause a fire in your shack. You definitely don't want to do that. So when you get your charger and your power supply, make sure you keep the two of them together. Don't separate them. Bad things will happen. Trust me. Word of note. Again, I don't know if this is just all Chinese stuff. It seems to be. This is a $65, $75 radio. Okay, so when I got it, the charging wall wart was broken because the quality control on a $75, $65 radio is not excellent. Okay, things like that happen. It's not the fault of the vendor; it's the fault of the manufacturer. And the particular vendor I bought from, Radioddity, really good about it. Just sent me a replacement part, and we're done. It's that simple. So again, really happy with Radioddity. Happy with the radio. Speaker mic on the side to plug in, your external speaker. A note on that: the audio works the same way as it does on other Baofengs, where it's in this tiny, tiny, tiny little microphone hole in the front. Despite that, my audio quality results, like I said, were pretty good. Nobody complained. Everybody said my audio was actually really good for a Baofeng radio. The one upgrade you could do is either use an external speaker mic, or there's various hacks out there on drilling that bigger and using getting more audio into the microphone. So with that, let's turn this back on. I do want to show one nice feature that I like in this above the other ones. When you hit the menu button, this is a 2-line display on the radio. We'll put some close-ups in here, which is a little bit harder than some of the other ones to navigate through the menu. So in this, I've got a simple zone select. It's one tier shorter in the menu system than it is on the TYT switching zones, so that's really nice. Again, you can program the radio on this, however, it's a 2-line display. So if you really want to do that, you're going to get really tired of it really quick. So I recommend not. I recommend using the Cps software, which we're going to talk about in a minute here. So I've got my call logs on here, just like you would expect on any other DMR radio. I've got my settings. Again, really recommend not doing that. The zone change and enabling scan. Really, the only thing I use in the menu is the zone change. That's it. I've used scan occasionally, but the zone change is the big deal here. So let's look at the CPS software and see what happens. So here's the CPS software for the RD-5R. If you think this looks identical to the other ones, you're not that far off. It's got a few other menu items in here, which we'll walk through here briefly. Basic information is just the information about the radio, firmware version, hardware version, the last time this code plug was updated. Boot item, this is where you can define the start menu. For some reason this does not work on this radio. I'm not sure why, but I'm okay with that. Kind of be nice if I could put my call sign in the menu item, but whatever. Inside the menu, we've got a couple options here that are configurable. Talk around, I always leave on for my simplex settings. And this basically is more for if this was a commercial type radio, to lock down the menu so you can't have certain features on it. On the device itself, which I want every feature on the menu that I can get on this radio, so I make sure that everything is checked and enabled. Number key assignments, these are for shortcuts to dial contacts quickly. I don't do that. I don't have too many contacts that I want to dial up quickly, so I don't use this feature, but if you had some person-to-person calls you use often, you could put their ID here in the quick dial keys. General settings. Just sort of defines a little bit more information about the radio. Radio name, I put my call sign in for that. Radio ID, this is the number you get from radioid.net. It's important that when you work on DMR, you get your own unique radio ID, so fill your number in there. Scan mode, time, up channel mode, down channel mode is set to channel. It's sort of what you would expect on a DMR radio, right? I have alert tones turned off in most cases, except self-test tone I have turned on. I forget why I did that, probably just test the speaker up front. Again, some of these things are just disabled on this radio, which I find intriguing. The other thing I wanted to make a comment with the CPS software is there is some confusing text, sort of bad translation from Chinese to English in this case. I've submitted a couple of requests to Radioddity, who forwarded those over to Baofeng, so hopefully the software can get updated. As of this time, this is 1.0.0.4 on the version, so hopefully we'll get a new one here with some of the things I sent over from the fix. Buttons. So to recap, on the side of this device, we have not only the push-to-talk button in the middle. I'll move my finger here so there's only one. We have the push-to-talk button in the middle, and then we have a top and a bottom. I can configure what those buttons do. So I have the top one set to high-low, for example. And if I want to change what the long press does, I push long press and pick what I want, and the long press is 1.5 seconds. So that's kind of a nice feature. Most DMR radios can do that these days, but it's definitely nice they carry that over, especially on the price point. Text message, you can add predefined text messages in the menu system. Don't use it. I don't use it. Privacy, this is something that ham radio cannot use, which is encryption codes. So we're just going to close that and leave that alone. Signaling system, this is where you would configure your DTMF configuration and emergency stuff. Again, we don't really use the emergency system for ham radio gear, so we're just going to kind of ignore that. Contacts is finally where we get into the meat and potatoes of DMR. So I've got DTMF. I can program in predefined, basically dial tone numbers that you would for DTMF. But the digital contacts are your traditional DMR digital contacts. So in this case, I have this one set to BM for Brandmaster, GA for Georgia, and the talk group is 3113. Has some nice, throughout the UI, occasionally they give helpful text down here in the bottom. Sometimes it's less than helpful, sometimes it is very helpful. But, yeah, you know, it's decent. Call type, group call, ring style, none. To add, you simply right-click, add, pick group, private, or all. And let's see if I go into this one, for example. It's a Reddit one. Here's my Brandmaster Reddit 98003. So that's how you add all your contacts in. I'll suggest when you add your contacts, because you can use contacts on multiple channels, multiple frequencies, I suggest you somehow organize them with what network they're for, either DMR Plus, Brandmaster, DMR Mark. So in this case, I did BM-GA to show that it's Brandmaster. You could put the BM after the fact and do GA BM. You could put in parentheses, but differentiate those somehow, okay? So for simplex, for example, I just say simplex because it doesn't go through a network. This is to call group 99. So moving down the list, RX group list. This is, think of this as like when any one of these receives a call, your radio is going to wake up and listen on that call, even if it's not the active channel. So, for example, you've got your A and your B. Let's say, in this case, A was set to Georgia and B was set to ATL. If TAC 310 keys up and transmits, TAC 310 will break in and I'll hear it on this radio. You're probably going to look at me and say, why on earth would you do that for this particular radio? TAC 310 is really busy. I do this for testing and troubleshooting purposes. I want to see if any of these key up as I'm sort of learning the radio. It works for me. Your mileage may vary. But the point is in the RX group list, this is where you put the channels that you want to hear broke through anytime. Next we have our zones. Zones, I usually go with at least two. One for home, which is my home hotspot sitting here on my desk. And the other is for simplex, for when I'm out walking around away from a repeater. And then I'm going to be adding zones in here for the different repeaters. So for example, I can just take this, rename this, and call this Atlanta. And now when I add the channels for the Atlanta repeater, I put those in this zone. So on the radio, I can switch between zones really easily, and it changes what repeater system I'm basically on. nice, handy, very useful. Getting down to the more traditional things, but not, we have our channels. So let's open one of these up and show what this looks like for a DMR radio. Similar to your other Baofeng interfaces where you've got a forward and a back button up here to navigate through your channels. Does scroll down a little bit so the window size actually works in the software. This is a digital mode channel. I named it GAHS, so this shows that this is the one on my hotspot. I encourage you to do the same, otherwise this list is going to get really long and really annoying. So when you have, for example, a Georgia channel that's on my hotspot, a Georgia channel that's going to be on the Atlanta repeater, all those are going to be different, so I would put something different in the parentheses here. The receive frequency, transmit frequency, again, this is for my hotspot, so receive and transmit's the same. Squelch level I've set pretty low. Power level I have set to low. Remember, in ham radio, you want to use the least amount of power required to make the contact. So around my house, low is fine. Heck, the transmitter only on that is, I think, 0.5 watts. Scan list, I have this added to my home scan group. Does not allow talk around. It's not RX only. I don't want Vox. These are, sort of standard for your normal run-of-the-mill DMR channels. And then down here again, sometimes this doesn't work and you have to configure this twice. So if you remember, I did have the Georgia hotspot channel in my receive group. I also have to define it here for it to work right, bug in the code. And every once in a while I will see some weird quirks where I'll go forward a channel, back a channel, and something will get lost on this page and I have to reset it. I haven't figured out the exact situation, so I haven't set a ticket into them yet. Could be user error, to be honest. But just watch, go forward, go back. After you're done programming the radio and making the settings you want, I would roll back through all your channels to make sure that everything is what it should be. Color code, in this case, 1 is what my hotspot is set to. That's similar to the CTSS tone that an analog repeater would use to let you in on. Emergency system, we don't use that. Contact, this is where I pair the talk group or the contact ID to this channel. So in this case, I named it BMGA. Repeater slot 2, my hotspot only listens on time slot 2, so that's what that is. And again, private call confirmed. This is not a private call, this is a group call. Dual capacity direct mode is for when you're using 2 radios and you still want to use 2 time slots directly. Requires some integrated timing between the radios. This isn't simplex, I don't care. So that's the basics of a digital channel. I dove into this with 2 feet first and made some mistakes, found a demo, and walked my way through this, and ended up being that it was just quirks in the software, wasn't keeping my settings right. Once I figured all that out and the few little quirks, programming this radio was a snap. Let me hop over to a simplex channel here, which should be the last one. Again, this is a digital simplex, but just to show, on 441, I named it simplex. I got my squelch set a little bit higher. I don't know why I did that, so let's just dial that down. Power level high because I'm going to be out and about, not sure how far my partner's going to be, so I set that to high. I checked the box for allow talk around, important for a simplex channel. Color code 1, emergency system none, contact. This is my talk group definition of simplex. And I put this in the Georgia receive group. So again, very similar to the others. So that's a simplex channel. You want to add a channel, you can hit the plus here. And defaults to analog. I can put in whatever frequency I want. I can set my tones as you would in any other analog radio programming. Bandwidth, okay. One little, kind of annoying bit here with this UI, it's worth pointing out. These fields are gray. It's sort of good UI practice. White is configurable, gray is, grayed out, not changeable. Not totally the case here. I can absolutely change these. You will notice that there are 2 different shades of gray. If you can sort of see that, one is darker than the other. That's just bad UI practice, I'm sorry. It should be white or gray, not 2 different shades of gray. Baofeng just needs to get some new UI designers. But at the price of this, considering they give you the software for free with the Radioddity radio, or the Baofeng radio, I'm sorry, it just is. You don't have to buy extra software like you would have to if it was, say, like a Motorola radio where the CPS costs extra money because their software developer is working full-time on that. So again, for the price point, I can't complain too much. I will, but I won't. Scans just basically configures your scan time settings. They are really grayed out. I can't change these here, so it's defaulting to 5 seconds each. VFO is your VFO mode configuration. So if I go into A, we have it set to analog, UHF. For some reason, it's configured to 402 and 138, even though it's UHF, which fine, whatever. Just to configure more of your when you're in VFO mode, the defaults. Again, VFO mode lets you tune on the radio directly, so you can use this as you would a more traditional, we'll call it, HT radio, where you can tune in whatever frequency you'd like on the radio. So that's the CPS software. And let's switch back to close this up with the device. So to put a bow on this, this is the Radioddity / Baofeng RD-5R HT ham radio. Overall, I like the radio. Not sure if I'll buy another one or not. Probably not, because I've got other ones I want to buy and try and play with. For the price point, though, this is a you cannot go wrong radio. $75 list, $65 on sale. Radioddity puts stuff on sale a lot. So, again, strongly recommend. I would buy this as a first DMR radio, no question asked. In fact, I did. I was selling things on eBay, making some spare cash on that. Left it in my PayPal account, went to Radioddity, and bought one of these. Very happy with the purchase. So yeah, I would recommend this to anybody interested in getting started in DMR. Don't go buy one of those big expensive Motorola radios as your first. Buy one of these. If you drop this in the creek, drop it on the ground, it gets scuffed up, you're going to cry a heck of a lot less on a $65 or $75 radio versus a several $100 Motorola. You can buy a lot of these for the cost of one of those Motorola radios. Not that there's anything wrong with the Motorola radios. They have a few more features, a little bit better audio quality. But I'll tell you what, for 65 bucks, this gets you 90% there, and that extra 10% is not worth that much more. Receiver selectivity, sure, might not be as good, right? Transmit windows, if you look at the actual frequencies on a spectrum analyzer, I bet you this won't have as sharp cutoffs as a Motorola would. However, does this work? Absolutely. Does it work good? Absolutely. So, totally recommended. I like it. It gets my seal of approval. Not that that's worth anything, but it gets my seal of approval. So, thanks for watching. If you have any comments, questions, thoughts, feedback, innermost musings, post them in the comment section down below. If you like this video, please give it the old thumbs up. If you like the content from me, feel free to subscribe. I'd appreciate it. It helps me get closer to that universal / customized URL that I'm looking for from YouTube, and it lets you stay informed when I do post new content like this. So, this is Brian, the Overworked IT Guy, W2BJM. Thanks for watching, and 73s.